There is an update in the Idaho quadruple murder case against Bryan Kohberger, a couple of them actually. 48 Hours did a good piece this past Saturday. And Howard Bloom was on there. He's the one who's been writing for Airmail on this case. He's been on this program, just very good reporting on the whole thing. But in any event, there they spoke with the parents of Kaylee Gonzalez. And they came out to say, contrary to what we'd heard from the defense, who'd been saying there was no connection between Bryan Kohberger, who's been accused of the murders. They happened last November on the Idaho campus. He was at the neighboring campus, Washington State, studying criminology. His lawyer says no connection between them. They're saying there was a connection in that they've figured out he was following them on Instagram. So there's Kaylee Gonzalez and her best friend, Maddie Mogan. They were the two who were killed in the bed together. They were lifetime close best friends. And here's what they said to CBS.
They just told us the name, and we immediately started Googling.
They believed they had found a possible connection through Instagram and immediately took these screenshots.
From our investigation of the account, it appeared to be the real Bryan Kohberger account.
Among the people this account was following were Maddie Mogan and Kaylee Gonzalez, in addition to several people with the name Kohberger.
You would go to Maddie's Instagram account and look at her pictures, and he liked them. Bryan's name was under a lot of Maddie's pictures, like that picture and that picture and that picture and that picture. So he was actively looking at the Instagram account.
And the importance of that is what?
Just digital evidence that this particular account had some type of connection with the victims.
Marcia, it's very creepy, especially when you know he killed those two young women, allegedly, found them in the same room, in the same bed. They said that Maddie was on the outside, that Kaylee was on the inside, and that it looks like, you know, these girls had no chance. I mean, he basically snuck up on them in their sleep, and they had very little chance, although Gonzalez tried to fight because it looks like her friend Maddie, who was on the outside, was killed first. I mean, you just think about the terror that these poor two girls, and the one knowing her best friend is being murdered next to her. So I do think that it matters that those were the two he was allegedly following online. What do you think?
Yeah, any connection you can show that somehow begins to explain why he wound up at that particular location in that room going after those particular women is going to be helpful, because this is one of these bizarre, no obvious motive murders. And so anything you can show that shows a pre-existing attraction or interest in the victim is a connection that's a very important one. And I think that if this pans out, and it turns out to be that the Instagram post that the handle that they're looking at is actually Kohberger's, that will be some very important evidence, I think, showing the connection.
Do you agree, Mark?
Well, no, I was going to say Marcia hit the nail on the head. If it pans out, I mean, number one, we don't know when it was that they saw this. We don't know. They took screenshots, which should suggest that it's no longer there. We don't know if it was his account. We don't know if there was somebody on the internet forming an account or starting an account and then liking the pictures and then having the account removed later on. It wouldn't surprise me that could happen. And I think you just got to wait and see if this is in fact legit or not.
All right. Now, this trial was supposed to begin October 2nd, right around the corner, but it's now been delayed indefinitely. He's waived his right to a speedy trial, so he wants more time to prepare. But one of the things that's really interesting is they're debating whether there should be cameras in the courtroom. Marcia Clark, of all days to have you, this is the day. The norm would be, yes, they have them. That's why we've seen all the videotape of Bryan Kohberger in the courtroom on his arraignment and so on. And the defense, Kohberger, is seeking to ban the cameras to stop the media. I mean, it's very strange. He's saying the media has been focusing on his crotch, according to his lawyer. Okay. They want the cameras banned. And the prosecutor joined, saying, we too want the cameras banned. But the families of the victims, at least the Gonzalez's and the Kernodle families, say, we want the cameras there. The public deserves to know, especially in a death penalty case, what the evidence is.
So this was a post-trial discussion that I had with Fred Goldman, because I had been very opposed to having cameras in the courtroom. The downsides are huge. The problem that you face, of course, is that it turns into a circus. Now, in fairness, if you have a judge who knows how to keep the guardrails on, it can be fine. But if he doesn't, and he just lets the cameras, be turned on 24/7, it's a nightmare. And you wind up having people come forward who just want the limelight and really have nothing to say. Or you have people that are afraid of the limelight and have something to say and don't want to come forward. You have lawyers who are, stumping for camera time and FaceTime and, and extending things interminably with no real argument to make because they want to be famous. You have prosecutors who probably do the same thing, and in some instances, and you have a judge who sits down for a 6-part interview with the news anchor to talk about his life in his past. So I don't know where I pulled that one from. So I do. It causes these kinds of distortions, and it does cause a circus. So I understand the problem. Fred Goldman said, and he changed my mind, but the world would never know what the evidence really was. The world would never know and bother to read the newspapers after the fact about all of the evidence that we were able to produce. A huge, overwhelming amount of evidence of guilt. He was right. If you have the people moving around in the courtroom, people pay attention in a different way. So, I've come down on the side of having a certain kind of thing where you allow the cameras in the courtroom when the jury is in the courtroom, so that what is disseminated to the public is what the jury sees. But when the jury is not there and you're having hearings about the evidence that should and should not come in, et cetera, that kind of thing, then you should not have cameras in the courtroom. You can have print reporters, that's fine. But having the cameras in the courtroom should be banned when the jury's not there. And with that kind of caveat, I think it's a good thing.
Mark, the judge was looking at Marcia's most famous case, People versus O.J. Simpson, when she was the prosecutor, and saying asking whether cameras in the courtroom is a dignified way to have a trial, referring to the O.J. Simpson trial, calling it, quote, a circus, as she just said, and then adding, it's not the same media it is now as it was 10 years ago, thanks to social media. So I don't know if that means the judge is leaning against having the cameras, but you can bet there's a bunch of news outlets in there arguing, oh no, the cameras need to stay.
It's so funny. As long as I've known Marcia, which I won't even say how long, I've never heard her talk about Fred Goldman's reaction to it, because during Peterson, Marcia and I sharing our notable cases here, I joined in the prosecution saying who did not want cameras in the courtroom. I have said to you, Megyn, that was one of my biggest mistakes. I wanted the public to see what that trial looked like after the fact, because during the trial, I thought that there were people sitting in New York City commenting on the trial who had no idea what was going on in the courtroom. And if they had seen it, it would not have been the kind of critical mass that he's guilty, so to speak. And that was one of the biggest mistakes I made in that case, I think, that not having cameras in the courtroom. And to your point, how does the judge taking this in Kohberger? I think the judge is clearly leaning towards not having cameras in the courtroom.
Okay.
Because it's a lot to manage for a judicial officer.
So a tree branch hit a power line in Ohio 2003, and it shut down 21 power plants. Around 100 people died. And we have a power grid that was designed in the 1800s. Even the White House sees it. They're saying 2/3 of the grid are at least 25 years old. So they recently announced billions of dollars to update it. And how long will that actually take? That's why having your own solar power may be more important than ever. With the Patriot Power Generator, you get a solar generator that does not install into your house because it's portable, but it's powerful enough for your phones, your medical devices, even your fridge. And right now, you can go to 4patriots.com and use code MK to get 10% off your first purchase on anything in the store, including the Patriot Power Generator. You will also get their famous guarantee for an entire year after your order, plus free shipping on orders over $97. And a portion of every sale is donated to charities who support our veterans and their families. Just go to 4patriots.com and use code MK to get 10% off. That's 4patriots.com. Use code MK to get yours today. Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.